Angela Merkel to retaliate against Brexit Britain, and Kay Burley is cancelled by Sky News. Hello everyone and welcome to today's show. Today is a big day when it comes to Brexit. Why? Because Boris Johnson and Ursula von der Leyen have a dinner date in Brussels. Considering they've spent months and years negotiating about the details of a Brexit deal, they've just realised they could just sit down and have a dinner, one-on-one, and they could fix it. There's a lot that's happened over the last couple of days, and on the one hand, there's optimism from both sides that there could be some sort of deal. Definitely not going to be a comprehensive full deal, don't worry about that, which will get us to stay tied into the EU rules. On the other hand, there are now talks of actual no-deal scenario. The problem that we have is no longer Emmanuel Macron and his fisheries demands. It's Angela Merkel and Germany. The Times have reported that Angela Merkel is now warning Boris Johnson about her red lines when it comes to level playing field and the rest of the European Union. She's also said that we will allow you to become independent and sovereign on one condition. So again, the Times is now talking about how Angela Merkel is warning Boris Johnson that Germany could only agree to the British demands to diverge from EU rules, basically become independent and sovereign, if Brussels had the power to retaliate to prevent unfair competition. She said that we need to have a level playing field, not only for today, but for tomorrow and the day after that. What she's basically talking about is that you could be free, you could be sovereign, you could sign your own trade deals with other countries, but if you be too free and create competition for us, we have to have the power to retaliate. I mean, what is that about? Legally and also trade-wise, this makes no sense. That's never happened between any two partners internationally when they sign any sort of treaty like this, trade-wise. So this is the weirdest demand that Germany has now come up with, which is not going to help the situation. Considering the Telegraph is also talking about how Angela Merkel is now warning that the European Union are now fully prepared to reject the Brexit deal, and they are now ready for no deal. I'm sure they're ready in terms of the infrastructure and the bureaucracy of it, but in terms of mentally being ready, the countries around Europe, especially Italy, they're not expecting this. They've been relying on Michel Barnier to be able to come back and get a deal from Boris Johnson. Now, as we said, we have this dinner date tonight between Ursula von der Leyen and Boris Johnson. This just came out about an hour ago, in Independent. The European Union are now saying that this week, Boris Johnson, who's now travelled to Brussels, this dinner date and the summit that they're going to have tomorrow, they're not going to discuss Brexit. I don't know. That all the EU leaders are getting together and they're not actually going to be debating the Brexit concessions at this summit, despite Boris Johnson going all the way to Brussels. So the Independents are now saying that the EU leaders will not hold a debate on Brexit at the key EU summit on Thursday and Friday, despite Boris Johnson's trip to Brussels to try to unblock the trade talks. The decision is a blow to hopes that the 27 presidents and prime ministers could stage their own last-minute political intervention to approve the concessions for the United Kingdom. So this is a waste of time. The next couple of days also a waste, unless they're talking about this dinner being the key point. So these two are going to have this dinner, they're going to come up with some sort of agreement, and then they're not going to get Michel Barnier or other 27 country leaders involved, which will be quite interesting to see what actually comes out of it, because Boris Johnson's line is still strong. He's saying that no prime minister could accept any trade deal terms offered by the EU, these sort of trade terms that they're talking about. So this was also reported today, talking about how Boris is claiming that it's not just me. Any other prime minister would also struggle to accept these terms that are being offered by the European Union. He was speaking in the House of Commons, and Tory, obviously, backbenchers have been asking him a lot of questions. Boris Johnson replied saying that our friends in the European Union are currently insisting that if they pass a new law in the future with which we in this country do not comply or don't follow suit, then they want the automatic right to punish us and to retaliate. And secondly, they're saying that the UK should be the only country in the world not to have sovereign control over its fishing waters. I don't believe that those are the terms that any Prime Minister of this country should ever accept. This is a good sign. Everybody has been very skeptical, and I know people are still skeptical that Boris Johnson could sell out. We've got days left. We literally have days left to the end of this game, and any sign that we are seeing from the British government is that there won't be any concessions. They could change their mind, as I've been saying for the past couple of weeks. We could have a sellout at the end, but so far, Lord Truss and Boris Johnson have been pretty impressive. Now, the Telegraph is also talking about what's happening with Northern Ireland, because yesterday both sides have finally agreed to some sort of solution when it comes to the Irish border, which means the internal market bill, the clause that was going to be potentially breaking international law, is now irrelevant. They're going to be having EU officials being based around Northern Ireland, but Boris Johnson has refused to accept any sort of mini EU embassies in that part. And I think even this solution, we've seen the DUP not being too happy about it. But it really depends what they're going to be doing there, because it's all about the bureaucratic side of the border checks and what's going to be transferred between the two sides. If it's going to be practical, I don't really mind, but we have to wait for the details. Now, Sky News is again talking about how this dinner date, the compromise, it appears to be off the menu. Also, I'm not really sure why I'm getting adverts about Barack Obama's book, but yeah, it's not something I would really buy. So something about the algorithm on my Sky News search. But this is the thing that we have to wait and see in the next 12 hours when both sides start to leak to the press, see what they do. Because Harry Cullen, the Sun, is now reporting that the Brexit talks, not the actual transition period, but the actual talks, could drag from past Christmas and up to New Year. The actual talks officially the end of the year, but they could continue the negotiations even past 2020, because this is actually getting quite frustrating for both sides. But as I've always said, it's the European Union's fault, because they're so bureaucratic. Now, the mainstream media in this country, you would think that they would be reporting the details of this. So obviously we have the newspapers like The Sun, like The Telegraph and The Times reporting some of the details, but the broadcasters are not really concerned about this, as if they don't really want people to know much about it. They're talking about the gossip side of what's happening with the talks. Oh, Ursula von der Leyen and Boris Johnson having a dinner date, but nothing else. And I wonder why, because when we have good news like this, Canada and Britain signing a trade deal that will be worth £20 billion post-Brexit, these are good news. We need these things in the media. But they're not doing it. So this is the obviously news that was reported in The Sun, again, not Sky News, not the BBC, because the broadcasters have their own problems. Broadcasters like Sky News, like Kay Burley and Beth Rigby, because Beth Rigby and Kay Burley, alongside two of their other colleagues, have been cancelled by their employers because they have broken the Tier 2 restrictions. The interesting thing is about the hypocrisy of this, because both Kay Burley and Beth Rigby, like many other mainstream journalists, they went really hardcore on Dominic Cummings when he essentially broke the restrictions at the beginning of the lockdown because he had a family emergency. But Kay Burley had her 60th birthday party in London. And, this news obviously came out a couple of nights ago, so it's old news. But in terms of what's been happening since then, it's interesting. If you don't know what's been happening. So they went to the Century Club until 11 p.m., which is the curfew. And then somehow they ended up at a different restaurant after hours, which is nearby, but not that close. They were there for a while. And then they all went to Kay Burley's house flat for an after party in West London. This whole thing came out, and again, most of you have already seen about what's the reaction that we've had. Kay Burley herself tweeted that I want to apologise to you all for the error of my judgment. On Saturday night, I was enjoying my 60th birthday party, and being compliant. And I'm embarrassed to say that later in the evening, I broke the rules. I had been waiting for a taxi at 11 p.m. to get home. Desperate for the loo, I briefly popped into another restaurant to spend a penny. I can only apologise. Now, Guido Fawkes broke this story. Guido Fawkes also got in touch with the restaurant. They found out it wasn't just, popping in for a couple of minutes, waiting for a taxi. They were there for a while, and after hours, after curfew. Again, this is nothing about me now being an angel saying that, everybody should be perfect. But these two, especially Kay Burley and Beth Rigby, who try to be professional and try to say that everybody should be angels, they've done it themselves. Now, Guido Fawkes got in touch with the restaurant and found the details. So, number one, her party at this, the club, Century Club, were made up of 10 people, so not 6. The rule of 6 was already broken. Kay Burley's statement presumes that she walked all the way to the restaurant, the second restaurant, to spend the penny, but it's not really next door. Number 3, Kay does not mention that the other people who came with her into the restaurant, it wasn't just her going in there for a couple of minutes to the loo. And also, Guido was initially told by the restaurant owner that Kay and her friends had gone into the second restaurant after curfew to pay a bill. But what bill? They weren't actually there to eat beforehand. But eventually they found out they were just there for a while. No idea why. And then they went to her flat. Now, the latest is that she's been cancelled by Sky News until the end of the year. Also, she's been dropped by one of the award companies. There's obviously nominations for media. She's also been dropped. And the reason, again, as I said, it's important is because the media, the mainstream media, have been very good at trying to hold people in the position of power to account and scrutinize them. And right now, we need them to actually do this when it comes to the lockdown situation, the Brexit negotiations, but they're not doing that, and they're showing their own hypocrisy. Guido Fawkes also decided to do a bit of a mash-up video of all the interviews and all the comments that Beth Rigby and Kay Burley have made about Dominic Cummings months ago, but they did a mash-up and edited it to make it about themselves.
Why should we abide by the rules?
Ordinary families have put up with all kinds of restrictions and hardships. People not even going into hospital when their kids have been having cancer treatment. Why are you so different?
We don't need to go into all of that detail.
How can you even countenance at the moment staying on and not resigning?
The point you're making is
screaming at the telly saying, it's one rule for us and it's one rule for them. And you're falling into that trap.
How could you not even check with your boss?
If we break the law, does that make your position untenable?
Well, that was clearly funny. I hope you enjoyed that clip, and I will keep you guys posted on the Brexit talks tomorrow. But the next video is about Ash Sarkar and Novara Media. As you guys remember, a few days ago I made a video about their channel. They've come back with a counter argument. So, but their counter argument has been quite weird because they've decided to insult you guys. They've decided to insult the subscribers of this channel. So make sure to tune in at 8 p.m. to see my reaction to that video. Thanks again for watching. I'm Tousi, and I'll see you guys at 8 p.m.